Hi everyone, and welcome to another Rombauer Hour. Tonight is our Culinary Edition, number 2. This is the second time we've done it. My name is Rich Allen. I'm the Vice President of Viticulture and Winemaking. And last time we did this, I was in Napa with my winemaking team. And I had this lovely couple in Colorado streaming in remotely. But now we're able to do it together. So I've got Dan Furr, who's our Midwest Regional Sales Manager, and Diane, his wife, who was the chef last time and is a trained chef. And Dan, we're here. Why don't you paint the picture for where we are?
Absolutely. So we are coming to you from the Roaring Fork Valley in Colorado. And for those of you that aren't familiar, just north of here is Glenwood Springs. So if you travel from Denver west on 70, you get off at Glenwood Springs, and then it's driving south through Carbondale, the town of Basalt, which is where we are right now. And then one town up from us is the iconic Aspen, Colorado.
So I was lucky enough to fly into Aspen. Very, very nice. But the camera crew who are doing all the technical behind the scenes work tonight, they flew into Denver and they had quite the scenic route to get here. It was 4.5 hours. So I just wanted to show you, being camera guys, they took a lot of footage, and I'd like to show you their little adventure to get here for us tonight.
So that's a fun glimpse of a little pass called Cottonwood Pass that the crew got to go through yesterday. So not always the first choice when you want to come to Denver up into the mountains. We have a lot of weather surrounding us today, and that's just part of the gig when you're in one of the nicest parts of the world. So the winery approached me to do an encore of the Culinary Edition, and I
think it might become annual. I hate to tell you.
I love it. I jumped at the opportunity, and Diane wasn't quite as excited about it, because if you saw the first Culinary Edition, she was the one running around and doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and I was standing there and enjoying the wine and talking through the food that we were eating. So she had an idea. She said, well, this one's going to be in the summer, so why don't we utilize the grill, and then you can do the cooking, and then I can drink the wine and chat a little bit. And I said, that's a fantastic idea. So,
but you somehow got out of it.
So then I had a better idea. And for a part of my career, I worked at a hotel called the Little Nell, and I've always been comfortable in kitchens, love working with good chefs. And I texted Chef Matthew Zubrod, who is the culinary director at the Little Nell, and he was kind enough to join us for this. And he will be going through some of his grilling skills and a couple of dishes that are highlighted at the Little Nell. And thank you so much for being with us tonight. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, Dan. Thank you very much. And I've been the chef at the Little Nell for 6 years. Title's a culinary director, but it's really a fancy word for the executive chef. And I've been a big fan of Rombauer for years and really enjoyed the wines and the pairings. And when he asked me to do this, I was thrilled. And I'm a big fan of this Wagyu, which is textbook with their cab, and I'll feature that a little bit later.
So, Matt, I forgot to tell people to open their bottle and drink their wine. So if you're at home, you need to pop a cork and pour a glass of wine. I'm going to do that for us. But how did you become a chef? What was your background? Were you classically trained at a culinary school, or how did you find your way into what you're doing?
How much time do I have?
You've got 4 minutes and 37 seconds.
Oh, that's a lot. Okay. So I think I was like 13 or 14, and my parents had a little calendar on the refrigerator, and it said, a chore for the week: dishes, washing the laundry, taking out the trash, and cooking. And the cooking night I took very seriously. We had cookbooks. We lived in a small town in Kennebunkport, Maine. And we would go and we could charge whatever we wanted to. Obviously, my parents got mad when I bought expensive things, but they encouraged me making dishes, and some of them were good and some weren't so good. Anyhow, then I got the courage to get a job in a local restaurant, and I was a dishwasher. And he let me prep. The chef taught me quite a few things, And then he, would take off with one of the servers for a few hours at a time, true story. And the orders would come in and I would just go for it. And I started cooking.
So were they at the bar next door? Is that what they were doing?
That, or I think he had a room at the hotel as part of his compensation package.
Gotcha.
It was a seasonal resort in Kennebunkport, Maine.
Yeah.
Which is where I learned the lobster. We'll get into that in a minute. But anyhow, that was my first taste of cooking and I thought it was fun. And then I asked him to teach me more and more so he could spend more time with his girlfriend.
Yep. Excellent. And Diane, last time you were on the show, some people might not have seen that, but I know you grew up in a family that loved food. So what was your path to becoming a chef?
I always loved helping my parents cook. I wound up going to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. And then I went on to work at the Four Seasons Hotel in New York, which is where I met Dan. And then we both transferred to the Las Vegas property, and then Dan transferred to the Aviara property in San Diego, and a couple of more moves, and a couple of years later,
couple
of kids later, I'm now, house manager of our home, and pretty much takes care of everybody, knows where everything is in the house at all times.
You've coined the term daddy eyes.
I call that domestic blindness.
Yeah, the girls are like, oh, you're using your daddy eyes. You don't see it. It's right in front of your face.
That's what we call domestic blindness in my household. And Dad, I know you're not a chef, but what was your path to working for Rombauer? What was your background?
Right, so I grew up in the restaurant business. My father was a chef, and
whose lovely home we're at tonight.
That's correct, yes. And, I was interested in possibly working in kitchens, and when I brought up the idea of going to culinary myself, my father actually wasn't really keen on that. So I went and got my education in applied psychology, and then I ended up working in that field for an internship when I was done with school, and I was bartending at the same time, and I loved that. So I wanted to find a way to, how do I pursue this passion, and I ended up getting a little bit of an education in the food business, and got my first job also at the Four Seasons Hotel in New York City, where I met my wife. And many years later, and a few hotels later, got to work at the Little Nell Hotel in Aspen, Colorado, met Chef Matt, and that hotel really steered me into the world of wine, and here I am representing this amazing family brand. So,
well, that's excellent. So we've got, being the Culinary Edition, we're going to do a number of dishes tonight, paired with some Rombauer wine. So why don't you walk me through exactly the 3 dishes we're going to have, and I'll talk about the wine, because that's
absolutely
what I'm good at.
Chef, what's on the menu tonight? We have a couple of things that you feature up there. So,
well, being from Maine, I have to prepare lobster, textbook pairing with the Chardonnay. So I actually did put myself to college catching lobsters for a living. It was a lot of fun. And the first chef I think I worked for when I started cooking, because I actually don't like to eat lobster, taught me like the classic pairing is a nice lobster dish with a nice Barriocchi Chardonnay, and I was like, wow, this is the best thing I ever had. So anyways, it's always stuck with me, so we're going to make some lobster rolls.
All right.
They're on Ajax Tavern menu at the Nell, and we're going to do our version.
Awesome.
It's definitely one of my favorite things.
I know you're a absolute lover of lobster.
Right, and then we have a lamb dish, because at the end of the last Culinary Edition, Richie demanded some lamb, so we're going to do a little bit of a lamb loin, also from the Little Nell, and then we are going to also be featuring an Emma Farms Wagyu steak. So let's just jump right on in, and let's
just look quickly so people know before that.
Yep.
The wines we're doing tonight, so if the lobster, we're going to do our 2019 Proprietor Selection Carnera Chardonnay. Then with the lamb, we're going to do my current favorite wine in the portfolio, the 2018 Napa Valley Merlot. And then with the skirt steak, we're going to do the 2017 Diamond Selection. So if you haven't opened the bottle and you don't have a glass of wine, now is the time. But let's look at how we do this lobster.
All right.
Well, cheers. I better have a sip, right?
Yeah. Salute.
All right.
So how do you prepare the lobster to start off?
So I wanted to make this quick. It's a lengthy process to actually prepare lobster. A lot easier to either buy the meat or to have this stuff prepped, so you're not spending a lot of time, so you can enjoy the wine. Anyhow, like Julia Child said, you have to have a little wine with every time you're cooking.
Absolutely.
Correct.
So I remember the crab cake dish with the Chardonnay, which is I think what he originally asked me to make. But
that's one of my favorite pairings. That's why I asked.
I love it too. But it's lobster right now in summer.
Summertime.
Crab cakes are not on my menu right now, so that's why I moved lobster, which is on our menu.
Is it Maine lobster?
Oh, of course, it's Maine lobster.
Yeah, I thought
we get it FedExed, twice a week from Greenhead. It's a company that's near where I grew up and caught lobster, so it's beautiful. I can get it fresh. Wow. Anytime, but 2 times a week is enough.
Having grown up in Maine and being someone who caught Maine lobster, do you have specific people that you like to get it from? Because you feel they do a better job?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, well, if you're buying whole lobster and it comes to you alive, obviously that's fine because you'll still cook up nicely and you can control it. But the problem is it's hard to get that because once they're out of the water, they die fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Right.
So right now I'm buying fresh lobster meat that they actually cook, process, and they have this vac pack process where it comes overnight and it's like super fresh within 24 hours out of the water. And that's the product we get to enjoy today.
Excellent.
So it's okay. I'm gonna start by, we don't chop it up too finely because we want to like taste the lobster. So kind of like large chunks, which is how we do it at Ajax Tavern. A little seasoning in there, some salt and white pepper or cayenne, and then I made already fresh mayonnaise. We use sort of standard egg yolks. Raspberry vinegar is my twist. I learned from the first restaurant I worked at. Lemon, tarragon.
So raspberry vinegar,
mayonnaise.
how does that differ from regular vinegar?
I don't
Is there
know.
a
The
flavor
first chef
difference?
taught me how to make it. Said
Okay.
we use raspberry vinegar, not champagne vinegar, not lemon vinegar.
Yep.
And it's probably good with any vinegar.
Yep.
You want some acid. Obviously, lemon gives you some nice acid in there. But I really like the flavor, and a lot of people can't figure out what's in it, which is kind of fun because
You just gave away your secret.
it's all
The
good.
recipes out
So,
there.
Yeah.
yeah. So we go a little heavy on the mayonnaise there with that, and we make a brioche bun. It's real simple. We make them at the Little Nell, and it's the same bread as you get if you eat in the restaurant. But this one we shape it like a hot dog. We toast it on the griddle, a little bit of butter, and you can see I don't need to do a lot of mixing. I don't want to mash up the meat as if you're making a crab cake.
Right.
And then we will place the meat inside the bun. This is 2 portions worth of lobster. That's why it looks like so much. I'm going to make one for us to taste right now.
That looks like
That
we're all
looks
standing here
delicious.
salivating. You know that,
So
right?
one of the trips that I've made Dan start to plan with me is I really want to go to Maine. I
Really?
really want to catch my own lobster. That's
Well,
like one of my
it used to be
bucket
easy.
lists.
It's peasant food. Back in the day, they were cheap because you could walk out and grab them.
Yeah.
And then when the wealthy people started eating them, they became less and less. And what I love about, you talk about sustainability, the Little Nell, your wine, lobster is one of the most sustainable fish out there because, as I know, there's rules and regulations on the size and the species and how much you can catch. So they're always reproducing and
Yeah.
they're never like depleted.
Yeah.
And the price is usually around the same for that reason. So
Yeah.
it's not like they're running out of lobster and they're $50 a pound.
Yeah.
Only $50 a pound if the demand's high because they control the quantity that you're allowed to
That's
to
excellent.
sell.
That's interesting.
And what's this garnish that's going on top here?
I'm a real simple guy. I like just little this is celery leaves,
Yeah.
and that would be it. Thank you so much. And let's get a little taste of this. I hope I can get 4 out of here.
So we're
Let's
going to
see.
pair this with our 2019 Proprietor Selection
That
Canara
bread looks
Chardonnay.
amazing.
So the 2019 obviously 2019 was an amazing vintage, and the Proprietor Selection is a selection of the best barrels from the best lots of the year. So quite often it represents less than 1% of what we make. It's all hand-picked, whole cluster pressed, barrel fermented, and then it's a selection of the best barrels. So it's really the epitome of Chardonnay we make at Rombauer. Crab cakes is up there for me for the classic Chardonnay, but lobster, I had lobster mac and cheese in California once, which was really good. So I'm really excited to try this. So I'd like to see what you guys think of the pairing.
And someday I'll fix you my lobster cakes.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
Yeah, crab
You
cake
make-
with lobster, of course.
So-
Same recipe, actually.
That would be fantastic.
Stole it from Julia Child. I
Yeah.
cooked with her once. It was pretty cool.
So you've had a bite. How does it taste with the?
We're gonna fork and knife this one. It's a little messy.
Yeah.
Beautiful flavor. There's nothing like a classic,
That fresh mayonnaise is delicious.
full-bodied Chardonnay like this.
What was the herb in the mayonnaise? Sorry.
Tarragon.
Tarragon.
right?
Tarragon and
Yeah.
chervil.
Yeah.
And the acid in the Chardonnay really helps cut through the delightful mayo in the lobster dish and the rich lobster. It's just a beautiful, beautiful pairing.
That
One of just a classic favorite pairing.
little bit of tarragon really changes the palate of the Chardonnay as well, which I would not have picked. I'm going to steal that last bit of lobster.
Can't waste that.
My wife's allergic to lobster, so I don't get to enjoy it that much.
Yeah,
It's a treat.
That little bit of tarragon, now that you said it, I can see it, but I wouldn't have picked it. It's just very, very subtle.
Yeah.
It was funny that you say you like working with lobster and you don't eat it all that often. I remember my father had he was famous for his crab cakes on his menu, and he didn't eat shellfish in general. So it's just kind of a funny thing that can happen sometimes in culinary.
Well, I'm curious if it's the first thing he learned how to cook, because lobster's one of the first things I learned in Maine. You have to have a good clam roll or fried clam roll, lobster roll, and clam chowder. And
how do you, like this lobster we had tonight, how was this cooked? Was this just a
great question. I like to blanch them in a court bouillon, like you're making shrimp cocktail.
Yeah.
Get the water boiling. You put some white wine, some lemon, some peppercorns, and some aromatics. And you can basically drop the lobsters for about 6 to 7 minutes, depending on the size. If they're about a pound and a quarter, it's about 6 to 7 minutes. And I remove them and I let them rest at room temperature. I don't shock them in ice water. I do believe that
because I definitely
makes
had
the meat
lobster
tighter
that's very
and
tiny
chewy.
and chewy. Yeah,
that's kind of where I think it comes from.
Yeah, that was super
I
tender.
don't have science to back up the theory. It's just a chef thing. And anyways, I let them rest nicely, so they're still a little warm, and then we clean the meat out and chill it before we make the salad. So you want to eat the lobster roll cold. But
well, that's
my theory.
Fantastic pairing.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Well, we're going to move on to my favorite pairing of the night, the lamb. And we're doing a lamb on the grill with a chimichurri. But this particular lamb, it's a local lamb. So
It's gorgeous.
Rosen Farms. So,
Tell us about
Chef,
this.
maybe talk a little bit about, so we're doing Rosen Farms for this, and maybe also talk a little bit about the Emma Farms that you're partnered up with as well when we get to the Wagyu beef and how you choose your partners.
Yeah, of course. I think as a chef, your responsibility is to know where all your ingredients come from, whether it's the vegetables, to the vinegars, to the proteins. And the proteins are obviously the most important, the most expensive part of what you're putting on the menu, and the biggest flavors that will pair with wines. And so I learned with lamb. Some of my favorite lamb I've ever had in my life is from France. This Paullac lamb. When I worked there, I staged there for a while, and then I when I moved to Colorado, I heard, this Colorado lamb is the best in the country. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And I've tried a bunch of different lamb, and this Colorado lamb product, it's from Greeley in southern or northern Colorado, and I don't have a massive relationship with them, but I've been to the farm, and I've loved this product, and I've been serving it for over 10 years at the restaurant.
So if you've been serving it for 10 years, you must like it.
Yeah.
Well, and the customer, to me, the proof's in the pudding. Like, if everybody heated my lamb dish and came back, I wash the dishes as they come back in. If they're not eating, I'm like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah, I'll bet.
So, and I'm gonna throw it on the grill while we're chatting. If you're right.
So why don't you walk us through this grilling process of how you grill it?
All right. Well, we're using really great quality ingredients. So I'm using salt and pepper because I really just want you to taste the quality from the flavors of the meat. If you use wild game or some other products that may be inferior, you may want to add more seasoning to it. Really gamey venison if your friend gives you some roadkill. You may want to do a coffee chili rub or something fun and spicy. That will taste really good with Zinfandel. But when you're drinking just great Cab, or Merlot, to me, salt and pepper on the lamb or the steak is all you need. And I'll get into the steak in a minute. But this one here, I'm just going to salt and pepper and start running it on the fat side on the grill on medium heat while we fix the chimichurri.
So you go fat side down.
Yes, always start fat side down because you want to render it off.
Yep.
And I'll just be cooking that while we're talking about the chimichurri.
And
really, before we get to the chimichurri, I have a really quick question for you. When Richie, he's from Australia. He loves Australian lamb. Obviously,
I love all lamb. I don't discriminate.
We're very proud of our Colorado lamb.
love
What are the
lamb.
big difference? What's the big difference between Australian lamb, which is also popular, and Colorado lamb?
That's a great question, and I did a little research on this because I didn't know the answer. Because I've had some Wagyu from I think Greg Norman has a large Wagyu cattle farm.
Yeah.
And I've tasted the differences. And the only thing I can say, what my research on like New Zealand lamb, which is generally speaking a little smaller, the feed is mostly 100% grass.
Yeah. So
whereas in America they're a little more grain.
Yeah.
And it's the same with cattle. Like you can get them bigger if you raise them longer, but it's all about the feed. To answer your question, I think on what they're grazing on and the recipe that you feed the cattle.
Sure.
Have you ever tried wild Icelandic lamb?
No.
Okay.
Put it on my list.
I've had it at a restaurant before.
Blew you away?
Our president Bob Knievel, who's off camera, we had it once in St. Louis, and this is a wild sheep that feeds on like the native scrub, and it has a lot of rosemary and mint, and it is the most amazing lamb I've ever had. And our president Bob Knievel actually flew to Iceland to have it at the source. If you ever get to try it, I highly recommend it.
But for an appetizer, you can have a small lamb chop. I would totally enjoy something from
Iceland, yeah.
Well, or the Australian New Zealand lamb. It's a little bit smaller on different feed, and it tastes nice and it's sweet and tender. But if you want a big like lamb dinner and have a nice like steaky flavor, and you'll get to try it in a little bit. I think this is pretty
This is
good.
the way to go. Yeah,
That's
No,
a
it
pretty
looks
good.
delicious.
That's pretty
I'm
good look.
salivating.
Yeah.
It does
Okay.
look delicious.
So we're gonna have this with chimichurri, and this is so. I've had this with so many different dishes before, and every chef has their different slight take on it.
yeah.
Diane, what is your take on it, and what's in this? Because this is like, for me, the ultimate garnish for just about anything.
Well, it's quickly become a staple in our house just because it is easy. It lasts for a couple weeks in the fridge. It goes with pretty much everything. Ours has oregano, parsley, cilantro, and a little bit of mint, which adds a little nice flavor. We actually blanch the garlic for 5 minutes in hot water, in boiling water, just to mild it down a little bit, because raw garlic can have that strong bite.
Yeah.
So I have my beautiful mortar and pestle, which was my birthday present from last year from Dan. I'm
It's
going
the gift that keeps on giving.
exactly. So I'm going to start with the garlic. I like to add a little bit of the coarse kosher salt. It helps grind up the garlic and macerate it. Just a drizzle of olive oil to start. And then you just want to emulsify it so it almost becomes like a paste.
We're all silent because we're salivating about
Yes.
the lamb.
You can do this with a
Oh, you can
blender
stick
as
it
well.
in a blender. Yeah, it's basically just
And it tastes a little better after it marinates for a while, right? About
Correct.
next day or a couple hours,
Right.
depending if you use dry herbs or fresh herbs.
or a combination even. Yeah, I mean it's kind of you can make it what you want. If you hate cilantro, you can add a different herb. You can add a little rosemary or a little basil. You can kind of cater it to your tastes.
So if you're hearing lots of thunder, that's because right now here in Aspen, there's a whole bunch of thunderstorms going on around us, and it's quite interesting right now. There's a lot of lightning behind
We're not
us.
the opening for AC/DC. They're
Yeah,
not coming
exactly.
In a minute, around the corner.
Thunderstruck. It's all around,
Yeah, it's all around.
but not right
I'm
on
going to
top
put a
of.
little bit of red pepper chili flakes.
Oh, interesting.
Just
So that's
for
what
a
gives that a
little-
Oh, you need
spice,
a,
right?
Tiny
you
bit
need
of
a speed pour. There, I think. Oh,
There you
yeah,
go.
now we're talking.
A little bit rusty there, Diane. A little bit of pepper.
Salt and pepper, of course.
Yeah,
A little bit of red wine vinegar.
yeah.
And then the rest of my olive oil, and you just mix it all up. So you can easily just throw it in the blender.
Yeah.
And this can last for days, a couple weeks in the fridge.
Yeah.
And again, like Diane said, it's just such a wonderful, versatile grilling seasoned topping. It goes with, we're going to enjoy it with lamb and steak today, but it pairs terrifically with chicken or salmon dishes. If you like grilling your vegetables, over a nice grilled portobello mushroom would go great. So it's just a wonderful thing to keep around the house.
I got a random question that just came in on my cell phone while we have a minute while the lamb cooks, and it's, should dessert wines be chilled? It depends on the dessert wine. So if you're having a 20 port or a vintage port, you should serve those at cellar temperature. But if you're having a dessert wine like a Botrytis Chardonnay, like our Joy, or a Sauternes, or an Alsatian, Trockenbeeren Alsenlesen dessert
Okay.
wine, which is a mouthful to say, those you should serve chilled. I don't think you can have them too cold because they are going to warm up in the glass because you have to drink them very slowly. But if it's a white dessert wine, yes, you should chill it. So,
Amazing.
And how's that lamb coming along? Because I
We're
can
getting
smell
there.
it.
I think we're getting there,
And it's
Mike.
looking pretty
Just
good.
about-
Richie's about to crawl across the table
Yeah.
here.
Why do I have to be on this side?
This is about medium rare there. I think
Yeah.
we'll see how we do here.
Typically cook the lamb to medium rare, chef.
Yeah, you know. We did all right there. Looks like it'll work.
That is spot on in my book.
You know, and
That's gorgeous.
it's hard to have a good rule of thumb or timing on the lamb. It depends on the temperature of your grill and a couple variables, but I do it by touch. You can certainly just use a thermometer, and this is about 115 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a little between rare and medium rare.
Yeah.
I like it that way. I think
gorgeous.
that should be tasty.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so the chimichurri is this one you prepared earlier, Diane?
So this is the magic one that was earlier.
It's the miracle of modern television. Some TV magic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This might pair better with the.
So with this dish, it's gonna pair perfectly with this wine. We're gonna pair this with our 2018 Napa Valley Merlot. The 2018, it's the current release. It's out in the marketplace now. This is one of the best Merlot vintages I've seen in a decade, and this is one of my favorite wines in our portfolio at the moment. Merlot, we grow it in a cooler climate in Carneros. We hand pick it, optically sort it. About a third of it's barrel fermented, which gives the wine a perfect integration of oak and makes it a bit richer on the mid palate. But Merlot has very soft tannin, so it tends to pair well with anything. I've had a sea bass dish with Merlot before, which I thought the chef was crazy, but it was one of the best pairings I've ever had, all the way through to my favorite thing in the world, which is lamb. So you guys are going to have to finish your Chardonnay.
Let me know if you need another slice. I got plenty here.
Yeah, that's probably enough for me. I don't know what you guys are going to have.
Okay.
I'll put a little of this Merlot in your glass.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll let you guys tuck into it.
All right.
All right.
So while you guys having a taste, I'm going to talk about the flavor of the wine. So the 18, amazing vintage, but Merlot should have like a ripe plum, black currant, maybe a little bit of red currant, and a little bit of spice to it in the background. And the 2018 is a very rich wine, very soft tannin, and just voluptuous mouth coating on the palate. So I'm kind of curious to see what you guys think of it with the lamb.
The lamb is phenomenal.
As the thunder keeps rolling in.
Thunder keeps rolling. The lamb is fantastic.
The wine.
This pairing is absolutely magical. One of the things that I love to talk about, this is a winery favorite. It's one of Richie's favorites, but it really is one of our favorites at the winery. And it is just such a versatile, wonderful wine. It's, like he said, it's softer tannin, so it pairs with a lot of things. You can run the gamut from lighter fare dishes, and it won't be overpowered by richer red meats either. It's great, beautiful acidity to it. I mean, it just really matches.
The Merlot always has this, from Carneros, there's a particular site we source Merlot from that has a bit of eucalypt and like a dried black tea character to it.
Right.
And with the lamb and the chimichurri, like you see all of that plum and ripe jammy fruit flavor, but it definitely brings out that eucalyptus and black tea on the back of the palate, which for me is
spot on.
phenomenal. So I'm going to have the rest of that lamb. Just
All
kidding,
right.
I'm joking. I didn't
You
finish my
haven't tasted the Wagyu yet, which is my favorite, and I'm a big lamb fan. But I think it's funny. If I am having lamb, I'm gonna have Merlot with dinner.
Can you just?
It's kind of the way I learned to eat it.
Really?
From a French chef, yeah.
Wow.
And then when you're having steak, you're having cab.
Yeah.
It's like.
Can you explain? So the next dish we're going to do is a Wagyu skirt steak.
Skirt steak, yeah.
Skirt steak. Can you explain to those at home that might not know what Wagyu is?
Yeah. So Wagyu, it's a great question. Wagyu is a breed of cattle, and the Kobe beef is the most famous of Wagyu, which comes from Japan. I've always been a domestic. There's a domestic small family that makes exceptional cattle, Holstein cattle, and I've been serving that for steaks. It's some of my favorite meat in the world. It's brant beef, and I have that on my menu as well. But then I met this guy named Tom Waldeck who lives in Aspen. He came in the restaurant, and it was on the menu when I started there 6 years ago. And I tasted it, I thought it was exceptional. So at the time, the chef was buying from a local famous actor, I won't mention his name, who was raising what he said was the same kind of meat.
Yeah.
And so it was very expensive, and I'm like, this is not the same.
Yeah.
So I asked the guy, and he said, well, I'll tell you a story. This guy asked me to, how I raised the Wagyu cattle. It's a 4-year process. It's you genetically engineer. I'm sorry. You genetically
breed.
take the embryos, and you actually breed the cattle yourself. It's a big process.
Yeah.
And then he has a recipe for his feed of the corn mix with the grass, and then finishing with corn.
Yeah.
And anyway, so this guy, I guess, had a meeting with him, and didn't work out so well. So anyhow, I got really infatuated with this meat, and he raised it in basalt, which is right in our backyard here. And I said, well, let's do a deal. So I got lucky. We have the Little Nell's a partnership for 4 years. It's a 4-year deal because once they start raising them, you have to
go all the way through the process.
See them all the way through from calving till finished product, that's why there's a big difference in the quality, the flavor of the meat. And I always thought Kobe beef was all about the beer and the massage and all this stuff you hear, but at the end of the day, he tells me it's genetics.
So it's like a thoroughbred horse for for cattle, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, we're going to get into a minute here, but this is the cut we're going to cook. And if you look at the marbling on that, it's certainly more than, you know, most domestic Black Angus cattle. The Japanese A5, which is considered some of the highest grade of Kobe meat, is more fatty.
I've seen that before. It's like,
and I think
marbled.
it's exceptional. You just can't eat a lot of it.
Yeah.
This one's a little in between, and it's sort of my favorite. And so we have a deal to now. We use 24 head a year, and we have to use the whole thing. So it's on the menu with tartare, carpaccio, steak sandwich, steaks on the menu, and then of course burgers everywhere and bolognese.
Bolognese.
So we do it all.
Oh.
Nice.
So today you're going to use one of my favorite cuts. It's the skirt steak. There's a lot of great cuts.
Yeah, and we're going to pair this with our 2017 Diamond Selection Cabernet, which is one of our reserve cabs.
All
so
right.
let's get the grill fired up. And can
All right.
you walk us through how you, like I saw with the lamb, and you know, the lamb had amazing flavor. It was a very simple seasoning. It was just a little bit of salt and pepper.
Yes.
How do you do the skirt steak?
That's a great question. And when you use really exceptional quality meat, I really just like salt and pepper. If it, like I said, if it's gamey, I think you got to get creative with the seasoning.
Yeah.
Inferior meat will taste good, but I think you need more seasoning, heavier seasoning. You can get clever with spicier chilies.
Yeah.
And then it sort of takes away from just eating the meat. But with this one, with a great quality wine, I feel like when you're doing wine pairings, you kind of want to, you know, let the wine do the talking, and the food, I don't want to say takes a backseat, but it's like, I don't think you need to get too clever. So we're going to eat this one on its own.
Yeah.
So with these pairings, just a question while this cooks.
Yeah.
Like I always think about the wine, being the winemaker, and what it will pair with. But I'm guessing you make a dish, and then do you look at the food first and then try and pair the wine? What's your process, and how do you decide what wines to pair? As the thunder overdoes us here, how do you decide what dishes and what wines go together?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I do a little bit of both. I mean, when I do it with the sommelier, I will write the menu. He wants me to write the menu first,
Yeah.
and then he'll ask me questions about my seasonings on the ingredients to come up with a flavor profile. If it's my night off and I'm cooking at home and I feel like, let's say I feel like drinking my Rombauer Chard,
Yeah.
which Dan so kindly gave me a taste of, I'm going to fix crab cakes because that lobster is too much work. My wife's allergic, so
Yep.
we'll eat crab cakes or shrimp cocktail or something. So I sometimes do it either way depending on what I want to drink. But usually, night off with a nice steak would be perfect to drink to celebrate. I'll do the meal around like whatever wine I want to drink.
Yeah.
Because I look forward to, spending more money and having a nicer bottle on my night off.
Yeah.
Than a normal night.
You said you'll be working with the somm. Do you sit with the somm and taste a group of wines, or do you usually just taste one wine and pair with the meal?
Depends on the deal. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say on a regular basis, I just write a menu,
Yeah.
and he'll just ask me questions on flavor profiles.
And
If it's crazy, if it's just a crab cake with remoulade, he will know what to do.
Yeah.
But if he sees me, like right now is porcini mushroom season.
Yeah.
And we're throwing porcini mushrooms and risotto on steaks, and he wants to taste it because they're local and they're real early, so there's not a ton of flavor. So he wants to know what it tastes like when he's pairing so our steak dish right now is just a steak with mushrooms.
Yeah.
And a crispy potato.
We're going there tomorrow, right?
Sounds
There
good.
you go. Or you can go get
Nice
mushrooms.
to come.
If it's rain, the mushrooms are right out there. They're like 20 minutes away. There's
Yeah.
loads of King Bolitas or porcinis.
Wow.
I have a grilling technique question. There's this debate that I've heard for years, and I know how I do it, but I'm curious from your perspective, do you prefer to season your meat before you put it on the grill or after it's been cooked?
Well, Dan, I like to do both.
Okay, good.
And again, let's say you buy cheap skirt steak, all they have in the market, and you're starving, you want tacos.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring that home and marinate it for 24 hours with all sorts of crap, orange, garlic, chilies, limes, oranges, Coca-Cola, even whatever.
Yeah.
And then you cook it. It's like, oh, this is great because you're loading with salsa. But like this stuff here, I want you to eat it on its own.
Right.
So and I want you to really enjoy the wine. So I'm salt and pepper just a little bit before you cook to season it. Then after with a little bit of finishing salt, I'll just put a little bit. Actually, I'm going to put it after I sliced it, but I'll put a little bit on now, and you'll enjoy it with, just on its own. And I think the chimichurri is again good with anything. It's a good go-to with skirt steak. This is cooked.
Perfect.
It's okay. It's like
Yeah,
medium
we're all
rare.
standing here salivating.
All right, there you go.
And when it comes to
This one cooks quickly, which is kind of nice for skirt steak.
When it comes to grilling, are you a fan of a particular Are you a gas grill person? Are you a charcoal person? Are you like I've worked with a lot of South Africans, and they always talk about the braai. And they build up like a heap of wood, get it burnt all down the coals, and they want to cook on the coals. What's your favorite method?
That's a great question, because I used to think that you had to grill everything. It was grill or nothing.
Yeah.
And then I got into wood grilling, flavoring the wood, smoking, all this stuff. Now at the end of the day, at my house, I have a gas grill that came with the house. I have a charcoal grill.
Yeah.
And I use that probably the most if I'm cooking a steak. But honestly, a cast iron skillet, whether you're camping or in your home, is the easiest and and one of the simplest ways to cook. At the Nell, we do cast iron for some steaks and a Bichotan grill for others.
Oh, interesting.
But again, like high heat is where I'm at with this to answer your question. So you get a little char on the outside, and then you finish it slowly by rotating it on the cooler parts of the grill here, which is where I just rotated that one around. So that's how we got this temperature of medium rare.
Well, now we've all got on our plate and we're all salivating. The wine. So this is our 2017 Diamond Selection. This is our Napa Valley Cab. Like the Proprietor Selection Chardonnay, this is a selection of the best barrels from the best lots of the vintage. The 2017 is actually entirely fermented in barrels, so it's a very, very rich wine, very, very full on the palate, a good amount of tannin, and I'm kind of curious to see what you guys think about this with this skirt steak. The 2017 was a really
Oh my God, it's corked.
This is a good one, all right? So I'm going to have my 30 seconds here. So Rombauer, we're really, really worried about cork taint. Cork taint, for those of you who don't know,
I just made that up.
Is a taint that comes from the cork and imparts a flavour on the wine. That flavour is quite a musty, wet burlap, sometimes a bit chloriney, but a mouldy smell. And it comes from the cork, and it affects anywhere from 3 to 5%. But at Rombauer, we're one of the only wineries in the world where we individually screen corks for cork taint. So every single wine, whether it's the classic Chardonnay through to our top tier of Cabernet, which is quite expensive, every single cork is screened for cork taint individually. And what we're hoping to do by that is guarantee that every customer gets a perfect bottle every time. We still occasionally see one, but it's less than a fractional 1%, like 0.001% of our wines are corked.
Not too many people are doing that, are they?
A lot of people are doing it on the reserve wines, but there's no medium-sized wineries and up that are doing it across the board on all of their wines. And this is something I was really passionate about because I got sick of having customers return a bottle. But more importantly for me, like someone comes into your restaurant for the first time, if they have a wonderful experience, they will come back every time, right?
Right.
When someone has a bottle of Rombauer wine, I know it's fantastic. I want them to have the perfect experience every time. And if I can guarantee it has a perfect cork, I can guarantee they will buy my wine again. So that's why we do it. So, but enough talk. I want some of this skirt steak.
Nice dovetail.
Steak is fantastic.
And I hate using the beefy flavor, but it's just such a lovely flavor. The marbling is fantastic. It is tender for the cut. Typically a skirt steak or flanks, they can be a little chewier, but it's delightful, and man, classic pairing again, huh?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Sure. Cheers.
It's interesting what it does. Like on the palate, it has a little bit of smoke. Not like bacon fat, but that like marbling cooked fat.
Right.
So some of the barrels we use in this wine have, they're medium to high toast barrels. And so they have almost like a bacon fat complexity to the barrel, which ends up in the wine very seamlessly. It's very hidden. But the skirt steak brings it out, and it's...
Well, I want this to carry on for my cheese and then my chocolate after dinner.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad we have more.
Good call not putting the chimney on that, because the steak alone is just...
yeah,
It's perfect.
you don't need to overthink it with a nice cut of meat. The chef said it best.
Steak and salad, steak and potatoes.
Yep.
You don't necessarily need a pair of
I
sauce.
don't
A
know
little
what's
salt and pepper.
going on with you guys, because I'm the only person that and you've all taken it.
That's okay. Hey, look, I don't miss many meals, okay? You
I'm
look like
feeling
you
like
could
a
use
glutton.
it. Yeah.
Well, we got plenty more.
What do you guys think of the
I'll take your
diamonds?
plate.
Like, what was your favorite pairing tonight? So we had Proprietor Selection Chardonnay with crab cakes, Merlot with the
Lobster roll.
lamb, the lobster roll and the Chardonnay.
I think that's so. Sometimes these things are seasonal for me also. So again, for me, the lobster roll in the summertime with a nice glass of Chardonnay
So
is just a beautiful, beautiful pairing.
Oh, I say crab. Oh.
It's okay. Because
I
this
did
is my
say crab
this is
cakes.
my
No,
favorite
this is
pairing.
my
That's your favorite
Not
pairing?
to interrupt, but yeah.
Mine too.
The skirt
Amazing.
steak.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with my my answer. I love that, just that summer vibe, even though we have like thunderstorms kind of pummeling us on
That's
one
summer
side.
in
Yeah,
salt.
but just that I love the flavor combinations. These are all good. It's kind of like picking your favorite child, right? I mean, like it's.
The skirt steak's amazing. Probably the most tender lobster I've ever had.
You're going to say
Of course,
that.
I eyed off the rest of it over there. I'm not gonna lie.
We changed the menu for you.
No, exactly.
It's all good.
You know, I mean, that sort of brings us to the end. I just want to thank you guys. Thank you, Chef.
Thank
for
you so
joining
much.
us.
Pleasure.
Yes.
I want to
Awesome.
thank your father, Dan, for hosting us here at his home. We've made a little bit of a mess around with wine glasses and cabling and things like that. And Diane, thank you so much for joining us again. I know, yeah, it was a bit of an ask. That Dad talked you into
It's
it.
not always voluntary, but yes, I
Yeah.
always enjoy it.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And thank you for the chimichurri. I'm going to go home and make that. We'll be doing this again next month, guys, at our next Rombauer Hour. Next month, we're going to be doing the show we missed last year. We had the fires last year in Napa. We missed our show. So we're going to be doing Rombauer Hour, and it's going to be White Wine Harvest. And that'll be at the end of August. I can't wait for that one because I'm almost certain we'll be picking Sauvignon Blanc by then. So it'll be very, very exciting. If you love any of these recipes, they're all available on rombauer.com, and you can find everything there. And yeah, that kind of wraps it up, guys. Thank you for joining me.
Crew under the umbrella in a thunderstorm.
Yeah, and because it is a thunderstorm and there is lightning rain, our video crew and tech guys are all off the side here under umbrellas, huddled, trying to keep all the electrical equipment dry. So
Well, if you want to come out to Colorado, you have to have the full experience,
yeah,
right?
you can
This
see
is
the
the
rain
full
coming through the
Colorado.
shutters there.
Correct.
Thank you,
yes.
Diane. We're going to toast at the end. We need to
We are
toast.
gonna
Yes, we
toast.
do.
You have to wine in a glass for toast.
Guys,
Is that
thank
a
you for
rule
having me for
thought?
my first time in Aspen.
Chef, thank you so much.
Hey, my
Love
pleasure.
hanging out.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Wine's
guys.
delicious.
Thank you.